Introduction: a new player, a dark secret, and a storm in Port Charles. Port Charles has never been a quiet town, but the tides are shifting in ways no one could have foreseen. A new face, Jacinda Bellamy, has arrived, seemingly an ambitious investigative journalist. But Jacinda is more than just a reporter. She's a woman on a mission, driven by a personal vendetta and a locked box of secrets that threaten to tear down some of the most powerful players in town. At the center of this hurricane lies Drew Kaine, former Navy SEAL, Aurora media mogul, and self-appointed moral compass of Port Charles. But behind his polished image lies a deception that not even his closest allies could predict. And when Jacinda reveals the truth, it sets off a chain reaction that brings together an unlikely duo, Dr. Portia Robinson and her estranged husband, Curtis Ashford. Together, Portia and Curtis launch a dangerous and emotional crusade, not just to uncover the truth, but to take Drew down before he can destroy everything they've worked so hard to rebuild. Jacinda Bellamy swept into Port Charles with a camera crew, a confidential envelope, and a chip on her shoulder. A former correspondent with deep ties to an underground truth-exposing collective known as the Reflectors, Jacinda arrives under the guise of filming a documentary on healthcare corruption. But what she's really after is Drew Kaine. In her private suite at the Metro Court, Jacinda pulls out a flash drive labeled Project Prometheus. The footage contained within isn't just damaging, it's explosive. We see Drew in meetings overseas with men whose faces are obscured, discussing financial exchanges and resource control plans. But the biggest shock: a digital timestamp linking Drew directly to covert biochemical trials performed under the Aurora Shell Company without FDA approval. And the lead doctor in those trials? Portia Robinson's late mentor, Dr. Adrian Walker. Jacinda begins digging, tracing money, interviewing former patients, and forming connections. She's slick, strategic, and knows how to play the game. But she makes one crucial mistake. She approaches Portia. At first, Portia is in disbelief. Drew has been a confidant. After everything with Trina, Curtis, and Spencer, she finally found balance. Drew, of all people, was one of the few to stand by her side during the chaos. But when Jacinda presents the footage and documentation, some even bearing Portia's signature from her early days at General Hospital, the bottom drops out. One name makes Portia's blood run cold. Subject T47. A girl named Macy Lawson. Portia remembers her. Young, diabetic, and with a rare blood condition. She died under mysterious circumstances, and Portia always believed it was due to natural causes. But now Jacinda shows her records with falsified lab results and a digital trail leading back to Drew's offshore lab. Portia's professional guilt becomes personal rage. Curtis, now partially recovered from his paralysis, is running the Savoy again and slowly rebuilding his detective agency. He and Portia have remained at arm's length since their separation, but when she walks into his office late one night, her hands shaking and tears in her eyes, Curtis knows something is different. Portia lays it all out. The footage, the cover-up, the experiment. Curtis listens carefully, his instincts kicking in. While he wants to protect Portia, his mind flashes to his own past with Drew, their shared struggles, the friendship, the brotherhood. But loyalty fades in the face of injustice. "I need your help," Portia says. "Not as my husband. Not even as Trina's father. As someone who knows how to take a snake down before it strikes again." Curtis agrees. They launch a quiet investigation. Curtis brings in Jordan for legal advice, and even Taggart gets involved through old police contacts. But they keep it quiet, because if Drew catches wind, it's game over. Drew, meanwhile, begins to sense something is wrong. Scout has grown distant. Michael is asking more questions about a financial file found by Willow. And Sam, though she's moved on, appears at his office with one question. What is Project Prometheus? He denies everything, but his movements become erratic. He cuts off access to Aurora's archives. He wipes old computers. But it's too late. Jacinda, with Curtis' help, leaks portions of the footage to a whistleblower site. The story goes viral under the headline, "Ex-Navy SEAL's Biotech Empire Built on Lies. Local Hero Accused of Human Trials Without Consent." Within hours, Aurora's stock plummets. The SEC begins an inquiry. Elizabeth Weber is approached for her past knowledge of Dr. Walker's residency programs. Monica Quartermain calls an emergency board meeting at GH.
And Carly?
She walks into Drew's office, slaps him across the face, and walks out without a word. Portia demands a face-to-face with Drew, and it's anything but calm. In a private dining room at the Metro Court, she arrives with Curtis, Taggart, and Jacinda, all dressed in black. Drew is already there, wearing the mask of a composed executive. But as Portia lays out the names of the patients, one by one, people she believed she'd treated with care and honesty, Drew begins to sweat. Jacinda drops the final blow, a recording. It's Drew's voice. Terminate the program. Tell them the girl died of an adverse reaction. Scrub Portia's name from the final log.
Portia breaks.
You used me to build your house of lies.
Drew stands.
I protected this town. I gave people opportunities. You think Aurora was built on clean hands. Curtis steps in. No one's clean. But there's a difference between being dirty and being dangerous. Later that night, Drew is arrested on charges of fraud, manslaughter by negligence, and unlawful medical experimentation. The town erupts. Monica cries. Michael cuts ties. Scout, watching the footage online, calls Sam in tears. Was Dad always this fake? But even as Drew sits behind bars, he smiles. He tells Jordan, this isn't over. You think Jacinda found everything? That was only phase 1. There's more buried. And if I go down, I'm taking Port Charles with me. In a surprise twist, Jacinda returns to her suite and opens a journal labeled Mom. It's revealed she's the daughter of one of Drew's earliest victims, a whistleblower nurse who died in a car crash, just days before her deposition was due. Jacinda was 12. Her real name? Layla Kent. Her vendetta wasn't just professional. It was personal revenge. But the final bombshell comes when she receives a letter from an anonymous source. You found Drew. But are you ready to find the others? The camera zooms in on a file with the title, Project Shadowing, approved by Envy. A return to the old DVX? A deeper conspiracy? Nicholas Cassidy's fingerprints? No one knows yet. But Jacinda's eyes glint with determination. Portia, now a hospital pariah for her earlier connections to the experiments, resigns from GH. She opens a new clinic on Charles Street, focused on underserved communities and ethical medicine. Curtis, inspired by the investigation, returns full-time to Ashford Investigations. He and Portia grow closer again but agree. This time, they rebuild slowly, if at all. Jordan is promoted after navigating the legal chaos and begins targeting other white-collar crime rings in town. Elizabeth is offered chief of staff after Monica steps down amid the scandal. Carly, heartbroken but pragmatic, begins rebranding the Metro Court as a haven for the truth. She partners with Jacinda for a series called Exposed in Port Charles. Drew, from his jail cell, begins working on an appeal and possibly plotting revenge. But his final scene shows him whispering to a shadowy visitor. Activate shadowing. Jacinda/Layla, finally free of her mother's ghost, stays in Port Charles. But not as a reporter. She's hired by Sonny himself as a fixer to keep his hands clean and his enemies unexposed. Jacinda's secret burned the facade off Drew Kaine's empire. Portia and Curtis, two souls who've lost so much, finally stood on the same side of justice. But in Port Charles, justice always comes with a price. The game isn't over. The board has just been reset. And as new enemies rise from the shadows, the question remains, who will survive the next round of revelations? Stay tuned, because in Port Charles, secrets are currency, and truth is always the most dangerous weapon.